Yesterday, we had a press conference in Washington introducing a bipartisan bill with Senator Jeff Flake, Republican of Arizona, that will end the travel ban to Cuba. This is a unique situation. When you look at the situation around the world, there are restrictions that do not exist for travel by Americans to any other country in the world as they do for Cuba. We don't restrict Americans from traveling to nations where we fought devastating wars, like Vietnam. We don't restrict Americans from traveling to countries with troubling governments and regimes like North Korea, Iran, or Uzbekistan. Even during the height of the Cold War, I know I was one of them, Americans were allowed to travel to the Soviet Union. And yet, we, except in the most extraordinary circumstances, prohibit travel by Americans to Cuba. 2 weeks ago, I flew from Miami to Havana on a so-called charter flight. And I will tell you, I expected to get on to a propeller-driven plane and to worry about my safety all the way across for 90 miles. Instead, it was an American Airlines 737 filled with tourists from the United States and Canada and other places who are finding ways around the current ban. It's time to put an end to this once and for all. When I visited Havana and walked through the neighborhoods of Old Havana, had a few chance conversations, it was clear to me that there is such a hopeful sense when it comes to the president's new foreign policy. Let's face it, we have tried for 50 years to isolate Cuba, to change the regime. That foreign policy has failed. The Castro brothers are still in charge after almost 50 years of this policy. Now what the president has said is, let's try a new approach, the approach of engagement. History tells us this will work. Those of us who remember the end of the Soviet Union 25 years ago know what happened. When the door was open to Warsaw Pact countries, to Soviet republics, when they had a chance to travel and exchange, when they saw the outside world, they rejected Moscow and moved toward the West. And that's what Putin is still fighting over today. It was that exchange and that openness that makes a difference. It isn't just a matter of travel and curiosity and even spending tourist funds. What we're also going to be bringing into Cuba are new ideas and new values. That, to me, will be the most positive force to change Cuba for the better. I just got off the phone with Doug Oberhelman, CEO of Caterpillar Tractor. I talked to him about a number of issues, and he said, be sure and tell folks that our company supports the notion of opening up trade with Cuba as well. I think the embargo should come to an end. Let me give you an example. When we were in Cuba, we asked them, where do you get your milk? Well, we have primarily powdered milk. Where do you get your powdered milk? Well, because of the embargo, Cuba gets its powdered milk from New Zealand, halfway around the world. They're 90 miles from our shore. We could be supplying them with that product and countless others to the benefit of the Cuban people and to the exporters from the United States.